Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beat joined by the Fantasy Master Lothario himself, Gray Albright. How's it going over there, Gray?
What's up? Nothing. Chilling, man. You know what? Beat on football. Super Bowl happened. We're recording this on February 10th. Super Bowl happened on Sunday. So, and we're recording this on Monday. So, it's baseball season, baby. Let's go.
It is baseball season, full go. This should be a national holiday. It would be very helpful.
We should have pitchers and catchers report. Monday pitchers and catchers report day is a holiday. Opening day is a holiday. We get a week off for the All-Star break, and then all of October. Who do I talk to?
I also need the Thursday and Friday of the opening weekend of March Madness. I need those days off as well. As long as we're talking to people.
Yeah. You know what? I feel like 2027, I could run for president on just those days being off and possibly get a third of the country on board.
I think more than a third.
Gray Albright's and my campaign promise to you is days off. Who's on board?
Around sporting events that you may or may not care about.
Wait a second. I'm kind of interested in this guy who's giving us days off. I don't know anything else about him, but I kind of like days off.
Okay. Days off sounds great.
Yeah. All right.
All right. We are here to do the second base rankings. I'm going to make the obligatory podcast league and RCL announcement. If you want in those, let me know on any form of social media that you can think of. Twitter is probably the easiest way, but whatever works. You can find me on YouTube or Razzball in the notes, wherever. Anyways, great. Let's get into the second base rankings because, as we know, these are all going to be 2-hour shows. So, first of all, I was going through it, and I've been putting my rankings together. And is there even a second baseman that you're confident, like completely confident in going into 2025?
No. No. I don't know. It's weird because we'll get into it when we start talking about the actual specifics of the position, but there's like a bunch of guys who did well last year. Well, not a bunch, but there's a handful of guys who did well last year. And those guys, I don't trust to repeat. And then there's the guys that are like last year, like Ozzie Albies, who did badly last year. And those guys I expect to bounce back. So it's like guys who did well that I don't expect to do well again, and guys who didn't do well that I'm hoping do well this year. It's not great.
All right, great. Number one is Mookie Betts, who we already talked about in top 20. So number two is, as you mentioned, Ozzie Albies. Last year, he only played 99 games. He had 10 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 52, 53. He hit 251, 303, and 404. You have him down for 27, 15, 91, 82, and 267. He had toe issue early. He had wrist issues later in the season. What are your thoughts on Ozzie Albies here as we move into this season? And I think maybe the biggest question mark is, does he hang on to the 2 spot that he's hit out of his entire career?
No. that's the long and short of it there. Maybe. I don't know. The Braves lineup in theory should be good, as I believe we probably mentioned when we were going over Matt Olson. And if not, I'm saying it now, and I will say it again when we talk about Austin Riley and Michael Harris II and Ronald Acuna. I'll mention it quite a few times through the rankings, but the Braves lineup should be better. So even if he isn't hitting second, which I don't know if he will or not, I could see him hitting fifth potentially, maybe sixth. But he should have good, he should have good counting stats either way, because the Braves lineup. My bigger issue, and this is more like in general with Mookie Betts, Ozzie Albies, and this sort of actually not Mookie Betts. Let's put him aside because he was in the top 20 overall. But this tier, Ozzie Albies and the guys who we're about to go over, my big issue here is like I don't mind Ozzie Albies in general. Like I will draft him. He's definitely got like a Saber Hagen metrics thing going, which is like Brett Saber Hagen, who was good every other year. That's sort of what Ozzie Albies got going on. He's only good he's good 1 year, then bad the next year, then good again, and then bad. So in theory, he should be really good in 2025. Bet on Ozzie Albies in odd years. But anyway, my bigger issue is with Ozzie Albies and the guys in this tier in general. Like I like a few of the second basemen we're going to talk about later. Like I wouldn't go as far as saying I completely trusted them, like you mentioned in the opening, but I do like a few of them later on. After we get past this first tier. But with this first tier, like you're looking at, like I could see drafting Ozzie Albies if he's there and the price is good, which is like relative, like I'd say mid 30s overall, I think is probably a good price for him. The thing is with Ozzie Albies and the guys in this tier is like I could see probably going for a different position / different guys. Like like if you're looking at like the like this tier is like the first tier of the second baseman, obviously after Betts. But if you're going overall, so Ozzie Albies is going like if he's going at like 50, which he is overall, it's fine. But my bigger issue is like that's when I'm drafting my first starter. So it's kind of like more about like what I'm doing versus what these guys are doing. And where I have Ozzie Albies, like if I have Ozzie Albies at like 35 overall, like that's fine. Like that's even higher than ADP. But in reality, if I have CJ Abrams there in the same vicinity and I want like a guy who I trust a bit more, then I'll probably go like CJ Abrams, So it's like if I'm going for a bat where Albies is getting where I have Albies at, I'm probably going for a different bat. Like I'm probably going for like a James Wood or something. And then if I'm going for like Ozzie Albies where his ADP is, which is around 50, then I'm going for a starter and I'm not drafting a hitter. And that's sort of the whole deal with this entire tier. So it's not that like I think Ozzie Albies could bounce back. I've projected him well. The only thing really, like his last season really made no sense. But like you mentioned, there was injuries. So you just write off the whole season and expect him to bounce back and be in a good lineup. So that's all well and good. I don't mind it. It's just I don't really see myself drafting him necessarily. And I don't see myself drafting like the other guys in this tier. So, yeah, I mean, it's like I'm not completely out on Albies, but in reality, I'm probably not drafting them. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think some of my builds have gone a little bit differently in that I've grabbed a starter either earlier or later than there. Either like a bunch went off and I've grabbed one early, or there's kind of there's a break like somewhere after Albies. It's not Albies, it's like 10 picks after Albies where I don't like most of the bats in that area. And so that's where I usually kind of wait and I'll kind of double tap my pitcher in that area. But I know what you're saying, where you just kind of build yourself into a situation where, you're not looking at necessarily taking Albies or.
And also, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I like some of the second basemen as we go along here. Like I like the value on like the next tier of second baseman. So I'm probably looking like I'm probably in like in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, I don't mind Ozzie Albies, but I can just get like a second baseman in say 50 picks later and be happy with that second baseman. So I'm fine like not going for Ozzy Albies. Like it's not. And also, I mean, and being like completely honest, like if I get to if I get to my pick where I'm taking my first starter, so say I get to like say pick 50 and I'm taking a starter there. Oh, excuse me. And say I'm getting to pick 50, I take a starter. I say I take, I don't know, Cole Reagan, say. I draft Cole Reagans, and if I happen to have the turn, like if I'm picking at the turn and my next pick, I have a spot for Ozzy Albies and he's on the board, I can see drafting him. Like it's not like I'm like completely out on him, and I don't necessarily think that he can't bounce back. So there is a chance he ends up on my teams, but it's not the first place I'm going. Like I'm definitely going. Like I would definitely be going Cole Reagans, and if I don't have the turn, then he would have to make it all the way back to me or something. So it all depends on how the draft unfolds, but I am unlikely to get Ozzy Albies, is all I'm saying.
Fair enough. Let's move on. People now know exactly what you mean. Number 3, Thelma Marte. Last year in 136 games, he had 36 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 93, 95, 292, 372, 560. You have him projected for 25 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 91, 80, and a 272 average. I got a whole thing here, so I'm just gonna let you talk about him, and then I'll say what you don't.
I'll say the same thing in 5 different ways, and then you can come on and be like, I think people understand what you're saying. Okay, so Kettle Marte, Ketel Marte. I feel like there might be like he definitely had like there was some good things in his stats. Like I'm sure like what you want to say, because I think you like Marte a lot. I don't necessarily like him. I think he's it's hard for me to see a guy who is like a perennial like 15 homer hitter, then hits 25 homers, then hits 36 homers, which in the climate that we were in, like he was like it was like him and Kyle Schwarber were like it was like Kyle Schwarber 38 homers, then Ketel Marte with 36. I mean, it's like it just doesn't really track for me because, like, Schwarber's an actual home run hitter, and Ketel Marte for a couple of years there was hitting like 14 to 17 homers. So I don't really buy the power, even though I think like the hard hit percentage is really good. Like he did really make excellent contact. His fly balls aren't really that high. He had a low line drive rate, a high ground ball rate. His homer per fly ball was kind of ridiculous for him. So it was a 25.7 homer per fly ball, which is like almost double where he was the year before. So it's like those things for me. And if you take away his power and he becomes again, like if he falls to again, like say even he hits 22 homers, if he becomes a 22 homer hitter, he doesn't have speed to make that up. So he's like, a 5 to 7 to 10 steal guy, maybe. I haven't projected for 7 steals, but either way, even if he gets 10 steals, which he hasn't gotten in like 6 years. So if he becomes like a 22 to 25 homer guy with 7 to 10 steals, and he hits 270, which is more in line with his career numbers. He's a career 280 hitter, but his BABIP was like pretty flat for the last couple of years, and he hit 276 2 years ago with the same BABIP as he hit this past year with the K's going up. So there's just like it's not like stuff that I'm necessarily like Like if someone were to say, I want to draft Ketel Marte or even Ketel Marte, I would be, I mean, I'm fine with it. I personally just don't see myself drafting him because I just don't see like, and also he's a guy who's before like this year he hit in 136, he played 136 games and he's only played 136 and 137 games in 2 of the past 3 years. So he's not like necessarily the bill of good health. It's just like a lot of things that I'm just not completely bought in on with him to like get in at the price. So again, I mean, I don't necessarily hate him, but I don't really feel like the price is worth, it's the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah. And I guess what I'm going to say is just kind of to give the numbers and then let the people decide what they want, because it's either he's completely changed how he's approaching, and that's what created this. It was a career year, which is basically what you're saying. Like those are the options that we're looking at here. So the average exit velocity jumped 3 miles an hour. Hard hit rate jumped 11%, which is crazy. Like 11% is a big jump. Barrel rate jumped 4.3 points, which again, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a big jump in barrel rate. As you mentioned, the home run the fly ball was ridiculous. Highest swing rate and highest swinging strike rate. Launch angle is down below 10 degrees, which supports your theory of he doesn't really hit the ball in the air, and he doesn't. He doesn't hit a ton of fly balls, which makes the home run the fly ball kind of even more crazy, just because he's not putting that many up to that level. And then I guess the bat speed, I really wish we had like the last 3 years of bat speed from him, but it's very impressive what he did last year. Average bat speed was 77.2. He swung over 75 miles per hour, which is considered a hard swing, 72.7% of the time. So he was maybe not as selective, missed a little bit more, but just when he was swinging hard. He has enough contact ability that seemed to have worked out, and it worked out well last year. It's just kind of, do you think that can continue? I do to some extent, but I think that people are going to realize that's what's happening. They're going to give him they're going to attack him differently because they know that he's attacking the ball more. He's swinging harder. So that's going to get him in worse positions. You saw that with swinging strike rate and the strike rate and the strikeout rate, which both jumped. So yes, I believe the power breakout, but no, I don't believe he's worth a top 30 pick, which is where he's currently going.
Yeah. Okay. So we're sort of on the same page. It just doesn't. I mean, it's like I could figure out how to attack him. It's like shocking to me that like major league pitchers can't. It doesn't seem like it's like that hard of a mystery when you look at his his batting average against off speed is like 205 and he's 336 against fastballs. It's like, why would you ever throw him a fastball? It doesn't make any sense. Like, and that goes back even to 2023. Like, it wasn't like last year was just the first time he couldn't hit off speed pitches. He couldn't hit them in 2023 either. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's more about where it is in the it's more about where it is in the count. So it's like it's a little bit deceiving because I'm doing my own rationale as to what's going on with pitchers and not attacking him with off-speed pitches. But I mean, it could be the fact that he's getting into a position where he's like in a fastball count, so he's looking fastball, so that's why he's able to attack fastballs so well. That could be what's going on. So, I mean, even beyond that, though, I think we've covered Marte enough at this point.
Yeah, I would say so. I think we've said everything that we have to say at this point. It is what it is. Neither of us are going to own any shares, probably. Number 4 on your rankings, Jose Altuve last year had 20 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 94, 65, hit 295, 350, 439. You have him projected for 22, 17, 91, 62, and 278. It was the worst strikeout rate in a qualified season for him. The walk rate was also down. I mean, the hard hit's been down for the last couple seasons, even though that was never really what he did. What's your thoughts on Jose Altuve?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's like, until he no longer does what he does every year when it comes to, at least when it comes to fantasy stats. I agree with you about all those other things, the stuff being the hard hit being down and like the walks being down, all that stuff. I mean, you mentioned it all. I don't need to reiterate, but I'll just say that, like, he does like put up around 20 plus ish homers and can steal 15 to 20 bags still, and hits 290 plus year in and year out. So, and that comes with good runs. He's probably hitting leadoff this year, and okay RBIs, for a leadoff man at least. So yeah, I mean, he is what he is at this point. Again, is this more about like where he's going in drafts and how I'm like attacking drafts? That I just don't see myself owning many shares, if any, of Altuve, because all these guys kind of are in that. Well, you mentioned Ketel Marte was being drafted a little bit before these guys, but a lot of these guys are in that, like, where I'm taking my first pitcher range. So yeah, I just don't see myself taking Altuve, but yeah, I mean, he's fine. I honestly, I don't see how anyone's drafting him. Which I mean, that kind of says it's more about my myopic view of drafts. But everyone should be listening to me and drafting their first starter around 50 overall. So it's like, if you're doing that, how are you taking Altuve? It's just impossible.
No, Gray. We want everybody in our drafts to draft pitching and catchers early, so that we get all the good players, and then we can just do what we want, Gray. We gotta preach to the people that we're drafting against. But yes, if you're listening to us trying to get draft strategy, this might be the area you're looking at pitchers. I've seen him fall in the 70s, and then at that point, I'll take him. That's fine. At like 50 or earlier, I think it's a bit of a reach. And I think in regards to your statement of he is what he is, I think if you're thinking again like 2020, somewhere in that range, that's right. If you're thinking he's going to bounce back to 25 or 30 of either of those, I don't really see that happening. And all the signals are there that, like, if he gets traded and isn't in Houston, like it could all kind of crumble all of a sudden. He's like a 15 guy, and that's pretty boring for
I would be shocked
where
if
we're
he got
looking at.
traded. Yeah, that would shock me if he got traded. But yeah, I guess.
I mean, it's not out of the realm possibility. But yeah, he still has a lot of money left. I don't know if anybody's picking that up. That might be the bigger thing. Number 5, Marcus Semien. Last year, 23 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 101, 74, 237, 308, 391. You have him down for 20 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 92, 67, hitting 233. The line drive rate was down some. Swinging strike rate wasn't great. It was the worst since 2017. But when you look at Simeon's numbers, he's kind of all over the place anyway. So it's kind of hard to pin him down for anything.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think Simeon is the last guy in this tier, and the last time for at least a good like 10 second baseman where I'm going to say I'm probably not going to draft him. I probably won't be drafting Marcus Semien. He's pretty contingent on like staying on the field every year. He's 162 games of 2 of the last 4 years, 159 games last year, 700 plus plate appearances. Like, a lot of his numbers are contingent on just like a ton of quantity and not necessarily quality. So yeah, I mean, I'm not drafting him. He's probably, he's good for 90-ish runs, assuming he continues to play every day. So 90-ish runs. And you mentioned my projections. I'm like 20-10 on him. 20 homers, 10 steals. I think that's probably fair. I don't, maybe there's some upside with the power. I guess it depends on how Arlington plays. If the steals seem to be drying up, and his batting average is just getting really bad. Like he's not aging well as far as BABIP and batting average goes. So yeah, he's a ton of fly balls, not really great contact. So yeah, I'm pretty much out on Simeon.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm much more in on him than you are. Again, he's kind of always been all over the place to say like the BABIP is gone. I mean, he's done this before. He's hit, 223, he's hit 238, and then hit 276 or 285 the following season. I don't necessarily think that's coming back. I don't think he's going to produce those kind of numbers, but I don't think he's as cooked as it sounds like you do, because pretty much all the underlying numbers, other than like the strikeout rate, swing strike rate, which isn't great, but everything else was in line. Sprint speed's fine, so it's not really like he can't steal bases. They just didn't really ask him to, and that may be in line with what they're going to ask him to do moving forward, because Texas doesn't really steal bases as a whole. But I still think he can. Like the speed's still there, at least it was last year, to steal, the same number of bases he has before. So I'm a little more in on Simeon. Moving on to the next tier, Jordan Westburg at number 6, 107 games last year. He had 18 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 57, 63, 264, 312, 481. You have him projected for 22 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 74, 82, and 273. What do you like about Jordan Westburg?
Just about everything. He was a sleeper for me last year and he did well. I'm kind of surprised. I'm not exactly sure even why he's still being drafted lower than I don't know. I mean, I guess he's getting drafted at the right spot. I don't know. But I think I'm at like, I want to say I'm around 75 on him, and he's at 90 overall ADP. I don't know, whatever it is. I like him. I think, if you look at his stat cast and all his numbers, they tell me that he's as good as you could expect, except for maybe like strikeouts. But he's a young player. That doesn't mean anything. I think his sprint speed was still good. I have his expected stats are a little bit iffy, but like all his expected stats look great. Expected batting average 281. Expected slugging 491, average exit velocity 91. Yeah, I really like Jordan Westburg. I'm a little surprised that he's not going even higher, but that's all right. Better for us, I'm in. I'm grabbing him. I think the only thing that is probably gonna hinder him a little bit is maybe the Orioles have a ton of weapons, so he could potentially be hitting low in order. I could see that. I don't know. I mean, right now I see Adley Rutschman projected to hit second. I mean, that could easily change if he comes out of the gate hitting as poorly as he hit in the second half last year. You move Westburg up, and suddenly he's in the middle of the lineup or something. Like I think there's some room for change on the Orioles lineup from last year with Adley Rutschman specifically, and even O'Hearn. Like he doesn't have to hit in the middle of the lineup. So yeah, I like Westburg. I think he's possibly like if you're looking at projections, like I said, I have him down for 22 homers, 12 steals, 273. I could see the power even going, higher than that. With the fences moving in, he's a righty, so if the power goes up to 25, 27 homers, and the speed is, I say 12, but say the speed gets to 15, and he's so 27 homers, 15 steals. I mean, he's that's basically a top 25 player. So yeah, I'm definitely I'm in big time on Westberg. I like him a lot.
Nice. I think I like him. I have my concerns. He definitely kind of regressed as the season went on. The average declined each month. He started 303, 278, 264, 232. And then he had a right hand fracture in August. As you mentioned, the ballpark changes should help him. So that should help get those home run numbers up. He can steal bases. He definitely has the speed to do that. Baltimore kind of became seemingly hesitant to run, other than maybe Gunnar got to do what he wanted, and that was kind of it. So I do wonder if like the stolen base attempts will be there, but he can definitely steal. So if they're going to let him run, the numbers can certainly be there. Nothing says he can't improve on what he did, or kind of you know take what he did last year and build off of that. Certainly. Moving on to our next guy, number 7, Bryce Terang. Last year at 7 home runs, 50 stolen bases, 72, 57, 254, 316, 349. You don't project for 6 home runs, 42 stolen bases, 68, 63, and 256. I do remember what I wanted to say about Westberg, and that was if Jackson Holiday hits and Kobe Mayo gets a job out of camp or early on, though there could be a lot of movement, as you mentioned, in that lineup. So I just wanted to mention that. But yes, Bryce Terang, what do you think about him? He stole a lot of bases last year.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I mean, he was 89th on the player rater last year, Bryce Terang. I don't know how, like, if he were to do basically the same, and he's going at, I believe his average draft pick is like 140-ish. So 140, he was 90 on the player rater last year. So immediately that's 50 spots of value if you can get them at 140, that is. Yeah, I mean, I don't like he stole 50 bags last year. The Brewers aren't gonna like, and that it's not like the manager changed since last year or anything. Like, there's no reason to think they're gonna give him they're gonna pull back the reins. Like, he stole 50 bags in 56 attempts. So, and he's fast. I mean, it's not like this is a guy who could steal 60 plus. It wouldn't, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think likely, he doesn't strike out a ton. He walks a little bit. Not incredible, but enough. Like sort of middle range for the walk rate. Around 9%. I mean, I think he's easy value, easy money with like the draft pick. I'm all in on Bryce Terang. Actually, in our in one draft we already did an auction draft. I already drafted Bryce Terang in that league. At the end of the day, he's sort of like a needs type situation. Like, if you needs steals, then you go for Bryce Terang. If you don't need steals, then you don't draft them. But I like him. If you need the speed, why not? I have no problem with him. I think he's probably a bit underrated as far as ADP goes. So yeah, I'm in on him as well. Like I said earlier, I like this tier of second baseman. Is there, are they completely perfect? No, I mean, Terang probably is going to hit in the bottom of the lineup, so his counting stats are going to hurt. He didn't make great contact, but you're not getting him for the great contact. You're getting him for the speed. So as long as he doesn't as long as the BABIP doesn't completely fall out because of weak contact, I think you should be all right with him. And I think if anything, maybe the power, like I see some people projecting him for double digit homers, which I mean, it feels a little bit high, but he is only, is he 24? No, he just turned 25 in January. So yeah, so he's 25. So maybe 10 to 12 homers and 50 steals. That's damn good at 140 overall.
Yeah, I don't really see a power uptick necessarily coming. I just don't see it in his profile. But yes, easy speed. Like you said, the counting number is going to take a hit because he's probably going to go from primarily hitting leadoff to somewhere in the bottom of the lineup. But everything else, if you're taking him for steals and an average that's not going to kill you, that's what he's going to give you. So nothing wrong with that at all, especially when it's 40, 50 steals.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, just to expand a little bit, because I know people love to hear about my own fantasy teams, but just to say real quickly, I drafted Bryce Terang in that auction league because I had already had, I drafted Corey Seager at shortstop, which is a weird thing for me. But Seager has 0 speed, and that is a position where I like to have some speed. So the fact that I had 0 speed coming from my shortstop, I was like, I felt like I needed Terang to sort of balance that. So if he fits your team needs, go for it, man. I like Bryce Terang. I also think the power. I have him projected for 6 homers. So I expect less homers, but still, as long as he steals 40 plus bags, I'm totally fine.
Yeah, I mean that's all you need from him. The fast swing rate that I mentioned, over 75 miles an hour, 3.5% from Bryce Terang. So he does not get that bat moving very fast very often. Number 8 is Matt McLain. Last year in 89 games, hit 16 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 65-50, 290, 357, 507. You project for 19 home runs, 18 stolen bases, 82-77, 265. The strikeouts aren't ideal, but other than that, he's actually pretty consistent for somebody who strikes out at the clip he does.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's like, what are we getting? What are we assuming just a total just bounce back to 2023? So, I mean, this is a tier of players I like. I'm drafting them. I think there's people drafting Matt McLain in front of me, according to ADP. So I may not be in on Matt McLain this year, but I do like him though if he's there at the right price. I just think it's interesting that Matt McLain is being drafted way before Bryce Terang for ADP. Bryce Terang's around 140, like I mentioned. Matt McLain is currently at 97. He has more risk. I see McLain currently being projected as the 3-hitter for the Reds. I think there's, yes, that obviously that could be the case, but they have a bunch of bats in there, and McLain hasn't played. He didn't play at all last year. He did come back, and he supposedly he looked good in the AFL. The Arizona Fall League. He hit for some power in the AFL. So supposedly he's fine, which, I think he is. I have him ranked and draft. I would draft him if he were available. So I'm not out on him. I'm just saying, I feel like there's a lot less, risk baked into his ADP as there should be. I think, if he's there at where I have him ranked, which is I think roughly 120, I want to say, if he's there at around, so that's 30 spots after his ADP. So that's later than I think. So there's a chance that he's going to be gone. I just feel like if there's if it's possible for me to get a guy who played last year and actually played well, like Bryce Terang, instead of hoping that Matt McLain comes back. And, I guess the hope is that he's going to be even better than he was in his one full year. It wasn't even a full year. I mean, he played for 89 games with 16 homers and 14 steals. So, I mean, you want more than that, which, I'm assuming my projections are saying I'm assuming more than that too. But I mean, there's a ton of risk there. So I don't mind the draft pick. I just feel like it might be a little bit too risky for me, especially if I'm still drafting my second baseman. Now, if I do have like an Ozzy Albies on my team and I'm looking more at like an MI and it's a shallower league, like a 12-team mixed league, I have Albies on my team and I'm looking at Matt McLain and he's, in the 120 range on the board, I could see potentially drafting him. It's just, I think I might not be getting Matt McLain this year.
Yeah, Gray. I'm gonna have to just disagree with you on that one. I love Matt McLain. I think, as we're looking at these numbers and how we don't trust anybody already, like to say anybody is really, trustworthy or consistent in this grouping, like nobody is at this position. He went 16-14 in 89 games, 290 average. I don't expect that to hang. He had like a 390 BABIP or something. It was a very high BABIP on those numbers, but like his floor feels like Jose Altuve's ceiling at this point. Like in 89 games, he went 16-14. In another 50 to 70 games, he's not going to go 5-5 at least. That's why I have Matt McLain higher. He, as I said, I've been working on my rankings. I have him as my number 4 second baseman, so I have him just behind.
Wow! What? Did you say number 4? Wow!
Number 4.
Wow!
I mean, I'm not trying to get guys on their downside, Gray. I'm trying to get guys who can still have career years.
Wow!
And put the numbers up.
Wow! 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 Number 4. Wow! That's a lot. That's high. Oh man. I'll just say that like Jose Altuve, who I'm probably never drafting, and I probably have never drafted in my life, but to defend the drafter of Jose Altuve, he has done it for like 15 years, and Matt McLain has done it for 89 games. So I
understand that.
That's fair, but you're also crazy.
Also
you're
declining,
crazy.
like clearly. Like
Altuve's declining, but Matt McLain might not even be declining. Is that a word? I don't know.
Possible.
He may not be declining. I mean, there may not be a Klein. There may be no Klein.
I don't need him to do anything different, Gray. I just need him to stay on the field and do what he did. That's all.
It's Matt McLain, not Matt McCline. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You might want to rethink it. But okay, all right.
It's not going to happen, Gray. Don't try and group talk me into your group talk rankings. Number 9, Luis Garcia Jr. Last year, 140 games, had 18 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 58-70, hit 282, 318, 444. Projected for 20 home runs, 26 stolen bases, 69, 74, and a 279 average. I mean, the numbers across the board were up, even if, there was just a little here or there, but everything kind of progressed in the way we want to see from the young hitter here, Gray.
Yeah. I wrote a sleeper post for Luis Garcia Jr. So I'm in 1,000%. I like him a lot. I think I have him ranked way above ADP. Or not. I don't know. I have him ranked around ADP, but I did write a sleeper post. I like him. It's also like when we say ADP, we're talking about NFBC's ADP, which is a very specific ADP. Like we're saying ADP, for Luis Garcia's 120 on NFBC, but if you go to Yahoo or ESPN, he might be like ranked like 250 overall. Like I don't know. I personally don't know because I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I'm just saying like I'm guessing Luis Garcia Jr. is going to be a bargain in a lot of leagues. Even if his ADP at NFBC is around where I have him ranked. So anyway, my biggest issue, because I like him, power speed. Like you mentioned my projections, last year you mentioned those numbers. Like if he's a 2020 guy with great strikeouts and, a 280-ish neutral average, like if you're looking around that sort of player, he's going to easily return value. My biggest issue with him, because I think it's important to note that, Davey Martinez, for whatever reason, was platooning him a bit. So if he's getting platooned out against lefties, that's fine because, for whatever reason, he shouldn't get platooned out, by the way. I'm not for it. I'm just saying if he does get platooned out against lefties, then he's going to lose some runs and RBI. So, it is what it is. It's something that, like, in a daily league, you'll be able to manage that a little bit better. In a weekly league, you're just going to have to take that hit. Like, if, he's starting against two lefties one week and you have to play him. But I like him. 2020 guy with great strikeouts who could hit 280 or better. I'm in. Absolutely. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I am too. I really like Luis Garcia Jr. And so for me, when I was doing my rankings, Gray, like him and Jordan Westburg, like Jordan Westburg has louder tools. Like he hits the ball harder, he's faster, like across the board, he's a better player. But the way that Baltimore doesn't let him run versus the way that the Nationals don't have anything to play for, there's a little bit of advantage there where maybe like Garcia can run more. And like the numbers might end up closer than they should be. And so like that was one of those things running through my head as I was ranking, like, but they're gonna let him like potentially steal 30 bases, whereas while Westbrook could steal 40, they're never gonna let him sniff 25. So how do you
that is always like the sorry, not to interrupt, but that's always like the catch-22, because you're like, okay, this guy's on a terrible team that lets him run all the time. This is going to be awesome, but that hurts the guy's runs and RBIs. And then you have Westberg, who's like, okay, he's on a better team. If he can somehow move into the 2 slot on a good team, he's going to have like insane runs and RBI. So it's like, it's a bit of a catch-22. I agree with you though. I do like Luis Garcia Jr. a lot. And I think, Davey Martinez, I think if nothing else, Lane Thomas showed us that like the Nationals run like crazy. And, and that goes for Luis Garcia Jr. Like he could potentially sneak into 25, 30 steals just because the Nationals run so much. And on the flip side, like a guy like Westberg might not scratch 12 steals because the Orioles just don't need him to run.
Yeah, like Luis Garcia Jr. is not that fast. They just let him.
They just let him go.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
He's in the 300s in sprint speed, Gray. Like Jordan Westberg is like a top 50. That's
actually, what? For the All-Star break, we get, like they do the pre-festivities. You get all the Luis Garcias together, and you have them to a race. Let's go, Luis Garcia race.
All right,
Actually,
great.
what
Moving
if
on.
they did like a pentathlon where it's like they do all the Luis Garcias at all different events? Like you have the javelin, the shot put, the the 100 meters. I don't even know all the elements to the pentathlon.
Is there another name of guys that we could have do it to get like against the Luis Garcias?
Is skeet
Like
shooting a part of that? I don't
the
know.
Molina family? Like, can we have them run against the Luis Garcias of baseball history?
I
I don't
like
know.
the Molinas are like the umpires of the Luis Garcia. They're the line judges of the Luis Garcias. Okay, anyway.
We are moving on, Gray. Number 10, Andres Jimenez. Last year, 9 home runs, 30 stolen bases, 64, 63, 252, 298, 340. You project for 12 home runs, 32 stolen bases, 86, 61, 274. Doesn't really hit the ball hard, but he hit it harder last year than he did before, despite the home runs going down. So that's a positive movement for him. And I guess I should mention that he also moved over to Toronto, so he's playing across the border.
Yeah. Did we didn't go over that in the winter meetings, did we?
I don't remember if we did or not, but I figure we'll just let the people remind the people.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so now we're entering. So this is still the same tier. These are guys I like. I am going to be drafting them. Andres Jimenez, I think, is like, if he's a 10 homer, 30 steal player, that's great. I'll take it. My bigger issue with this, with the next three guys, Jimenez, then we're going to talk about Nico Horner, and then Bryson Stott. All three of them are like, steals first guys, but they're hitting at most of them should be likely hitting at the bottom of the lineup. So if Jimenez is hitting at the bottom of the lineup, I don't know why, because George Springer has to hit leadoff. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Like the other guys that I mentioned, like at least there's a little bit more reason for the Horner and the Stott. Bryson Stott has Trey Turner at the top of the lineup, and Schwarber, and Horner has other guys. But Jimenez doesn't really have like those guys blocking, like doesn't have like, at least George Springer to me isn't really blocking as much. Like he probably
300 on base guy for leadoff hitter who has no power, Gray.
Yeah, you were breaking up there. I couldn't understand a word you said. I will say that like George Springer doesn't really need to hit leadoff, so maybe now that he's older and he just came off of like a terrible year, maybe Springer finally gets moved down, and Jimenez, because he's like, new guy on new team and like, shiny new toy, maybe he moves up. And that, if he's hitting in front of Vlad Jr., it really is, it dramatically helps him versus hitting at the bottom of the Jays lineup. So I don't know. But in general, I like him because he's around double-digit homers with 30 steal speed and probably won't kill you in average. So yeah, I'm in on Jimenez. I hope he somehow hurdles above Vlad Jr.
Yeah, so they really need Springer and his 300 OBP with no speed left at the top somewhere. They could always just push everybody down one. It's not like they're so deep of the lineup that we got to shove people in somewhere. Like Bo Bichette's scheduled to hit cleanup, guys.
I totally forgot. I forgot about that MFer. Oh my god, Bo Bichette! we don't like Bo Bichette over here. We're not.
How the tides have turned.
Yeah. You showed me the path, man. You showed it to me. You were like, yo, Gray, jump on, man. We're going down this. hater road for Bo Bichette. We are gonna hate on some Bo Bichette, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's go. I hate him too.
We all do, and so I don't know. It'll be funny watching everybody overdraft from this year again. Number 11, Nico Horner. Last year had 7 home runs, 31 stolen bases, 86, 48, 273, 335, 373. You're projected for 8 home runs, 34 stolen bases, 79, 53, and 277. Career best strikeout rate, but had a BABIP under 300, which didn't help the average. So what are your thoughts here on Nico Horner?
Yeah, again, he's with Jimenez and Bryson Stott, who's coming up after Horner. They're like a little bit of power, good speed, shouldn't kill you in average. Horner, even more so, like Jimenez, like I mentioned, he's probably going to be like a 250 hitter, where Nico Horner could hit 280. I mean, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be the craziest thing. I worry that, again, like the George Springer situation in Toronto, the Cubs have Ian Happ hitting at the top of the Cubs lineup, which feels like it's kind of, at this point set in stone because of he did it all last year. So I don't know if Nico Horner is moving up, but like Nico Horner is the stereotypical leadoff guy. So I'd love to see him hit leadoff, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I do like him though, almost identical profile to Jimenez and Bryson Stott, who we're about to go over.
Yeah, I mean, Nico doesn't take walks, which you can say whatever, but he still gets on base. He doesn't strike out. So, yeah, if he could just move his way up to the front of the lineup, I mean, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to put Happ's power at the top anyways. So maybe they can move around a little bit. Number 12, as you mentioned, Bryson Stott. Last year had 11 home runs, 32 stolen bases, 65, 57, 245, 315, and 356. Young projected for 12 home runs, 33 stolen bases, 66, 61, and 271. Numbers were down a little bit, on the hard hit and the average exit velocity, but everything pretty much in line for Bryson Stott from what we've seen from him.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, again, it's like 10-ish homers, 30-ish steals, 280-ish average. How bad could it be? Bryson Stott, like you mentioned, he struggled a little bit on average last year. His BABIP was down a little bit. I expect the BABIP to bounce back. I also really on any, like just about any other team, I feel like he'd be hitting first or second. But unlike the Jimenez and the Nico Horner, I really don't see Bryson Stott moving up because they are. I mean, Schwarber is set there unless Trey Turner gets injured and Nico Horner fills in for him. There's no way Nico Horner is moving up to the 1 or 2 spot. So that's going to leave him, relatively low in the order, if not at the bottom of it. So, yeah, I mean, he is third out of the 10 homer, 30 steal guys. There's Jimenez, Nico Horner, Bryson Stott, and the next guy, Louis Rengifo, and they are, they're ranked how I would draft them, obviously, but like Bryson Stott, really, I feel like he is, unfortunately, he's the most locked into a bad situation, unlike the other 3. Like Jimenez, I mentioned with Springer, Horner. I really like Nico Horner. I think he can hit for a good average. And Rengifo is just, he's, we'll go over him, but I mean, he's just sort of like in a bit of a tough spot because Ron Washington's doing cocaine. Okay, anyway, let's move on.
All right. As you mentioned, number 13 is Luis Rengifo. And by the way, this kind of starts a mini tier of my own that I created in my own notes, where I don't want any of these guys, Gray.
Really? Wow. I'm in. I like them. I don't know if that's clear. I like these guys. I've actually drafted Rengifo as well in that auction league that I was talking about with Bryce Terang. Yes, so I have Bryce Trang and Rengifo. So maybe I have too many steals in that league.
Well,
I like these guys. I mean, every year they hit 10 homers and steal 30 bags. I don't know, like what's not to like? I don't know. They seem fine to me.
So Rengifo last year did have 6 home runs, 24 stolen bases. He had 300. Projected for 12 home runs, 28 stolen bases, 69, 67, and a 279 average. Nico's fast. He's not like top 20 fast, but he's fast. Luis Rengifo is not fast, Gray. That's my problem. As we're looking at Luis Rengifo, he's not fast. He's slow.
Yeah, but that goes back to what I was saying about like Ron Washington doing cocaine. Like,
let me also mention he's not a 10-30 guy. He's never been a 10-30 guy. Before this, he was a 16-6 guy. The 24 came out of absolutely nowhere.
That's Ron Washington.
He's really, really slow.
I know, but Ron Washington, if Anthony Rendon stayed on the field for 100 games, he would steal 15 bags. I mean, because Ron Washington's going to do that. That's just how. And don't laugh too hard when I said Rendon's going to stay on the field for 100 games. I think that's just like that's the management style there. Like
he got it caught a third of the time. That's already not a good start. And then, again, like Gray, when I say he's not fast, his sprint speed is the same as Max Muncy. He is slower than Aaron Hicks and Tyler Soderstrom. Like, we're not talking like, oh, he's fast for a normal human being, but like not for baseball. Like he's slow for a normal human being, Gray. Like you and I could run, we could go after, like we could chase down Luis Rengifo. Like that's where we're at. I won't own him. I will have 0 shares and I will laugh at everybody who does, honestly. He might be my number 1 player of all players to avoid at his current draft cost.
Wow, what a hater. Okay.
Moving on to your next tier, which still includes a few guys that I just don't want on my team. Number 14, Xander Bogaerts. 111 games last year, went 11-13, 50, 44, and hit 264, 307, 381. You projected for 16 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 71, 64, and 261. Career best contact rate, but the worst hard hit rate of his career. I mean, I think we should just remember the days when he was a top 50 player and then just not draft him.
Yeah. I mean, I think Bogart's best case scenario is, he stays on the field and gets counting stats. I think everything else, there'll be like in April, he's going to hit 8 homers and people are going to be like, oh my God, Bogart's going to hit 30 homers this year. I can't believe it. You didn't draft him? Oh my God, you're going to lose. You're losing your league because you didn't draft Bogarts. And then they're going to get to May and it's going to be like, Bogarts is 0 for 45. Things aren't going so well. So that's just how Bogarts goes. I mean, he'll get crazy hot for like a month. And people will be like, this is the year, man. This is it. Get in now. And I'll be saying to sell. So yeah, like I said originally, I think his best attribute is probably going to be runs and RBIs. And that's going to be almost 100% contingent on him staying on the field. So yeah, I mean, if he gets 150 games played, he could get 80 runs and say 65 RBIs or something, depending on where he is in the lineup. But if I don't want Bogarts either, really. But this is a new tier for me. This is more about like needs. Like if you need counting stats, then I could see potentially drafting Bogarts. Am I going into a draft being like, I got to get one guy and that one guy is Xander Bogaerts? No, I'm not really wanting to get Bogarts, but I could see it if you really feel like you need counting stats and a guy who, up until last year, he did play every day. The really, truly crazy thing is that the Padres have Bogarts until 2033. Now that is, if the Padres are selling, as it seems like they are, they might want to try and sell Bogarts before at any time before the next 8 years of contract.
If they give Fernando Tatis away for free, somebody might take Bogart's contract. They might, Gray.
I mean, oh man, that contract. So Bogarts is totally like a matter of like the owner knew he didn't have much time to live, and he was just like, "Give Bogarts. Let my rest of my family figure out what to do with Bogarts. Give him whatever money he wants."
So, he's the best one available. Whatever, it's fine. Because now that we can go sign somebody else better, we have a farm system or anything, so might as well just do it. No, it's completely great, but like he's going inside the top 150 grade. Like I just don't understand it. He's not even, you say counting stats, but he's not even hitting at the top of the order. I mean, is Jason Hayward and Elias Diaz gonna hit him in like Tirso Ornelas or Tyler Wade? That's who's the current DH, Greg.
You said Tirso Ornelas. That is just Tirso Ornelas is just such a made up name. That's just like, you know what? Someone did a name generator, and they're like, "Yeah, that's our DH." that's not a name, man. Come on.
All right, moving on. Number 15, Luis Reyes, who we talked about in the first baseman. I don't really want him either, unless I just absolutely desperately need average. I guess he's average and some runs as well. Number 16, Willie Castro. 12 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 89, 60, 247, 331, 385. Young projected for 10 home runs, 16 stolen bases, 81, 52, 252. He was caught stealing 9 times for his 14 stolen bases. He also lost 0.7 feet per second in sprint speed, which, doesn't sound like a lot, but that takes him from being a top 100 guy to just outside the top 200. So 0.7 feet per second is a huge loss in sprint speed. I don't want Willie Castro either, Gray. This is just the mini tier of guys I'm not drafting.
Yeah, so I feel like I might have a soft spot for Willie Castro from last year, because I did have
from last year
because I had him in a league or two. I mean, he's like the stereotypical like Rudy is Rudy's gonna draft him because he does well in like runs or something on the War Room. Like he wasn't bad. I mean, he wasn't as bad as he would seem. Like he was 143rd overall on the player rater last year. He had 89 runs is not nothing. So I mean, it's not great, right? Like no one's gonna be like, yay, I got Willie Castro, I'm gonna win my league. But I mean, I don't know. I could see it if you really need runs, because like he seems like the one player who actually, like Baldelli, sets it and forgets it with Willie Castro, and that's about it too. Willie Castro will be hitting 9th, and Ryan Jeffers will be hitting leadoff. So I mean, who knows? But I think if you're really like desperate for a guy who gets counting stats or at least runs, and should be a little bit better than last year, you would hope at least for batting average a little bit, not necessarily great, but a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's fine. As I said, if with the previous tier from Westberg until Bryson Stott, I really like those guys. Excuse me, Rengifo. From Westberg to Rengifo, I really like them, and I'm drafting them. This tier is, it's okay. It's not. I mean, there's issues here. So we are no longer in prime second base territory. This is definitely we're probably around 200 overall in my rankings, and for where are we? ADP. Astros at 232. So no one's really drafting them really that high. So yeah, I mean, if you need runs, okay. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, that's about it. There's runs there, and that's very much based on them continuing to put them at the top of the order for some reason, which I will never really understand if I'm being completely honest. Number 17. Sung Kim, like meh, which this whole tier has been very meh. So he fits right in here, Gray. Last year in the KBO, he had 11 home runs, 30 stolen bases, 90, 75, hit 326, 383, 458, 11% K rate, 8.3% walk rate. As a point of reference, Sung Kim in his last KBO system went 30, 21, 306. So I mean, he's going to be fine. Should have some speed, good batted ball. I don't know if there's a whole lot more here.
Right. I think I think because they're both around the same age, and the KBO, both Kims, that is, I think that's a fair comparison. And I think Ha-Seong Kim is slightly better towards the tail end of his KBO career. So. Yeah. Hi Sung Kim. Hi
Sung Kim.
Hi.
Like that.
Sung Kim is expect a little bit less than Sung Kim. This is not confusing at all. They should have who's on first, but in Korea. Sung Kim, I have projected for 7 homers and 26 steals, and I think that's probably, I think that's probably fair projections. But I think the 26 steals is really going to be the make or break area. So he stole 30 bags his last year in Korea. If he can steal, then he's going to have some value. It won't be completely a waste of a draft pick as long as he steals bags. And, in theory, the lineup should, give him a good opportunity, but he's also, should be good for counting stats, but he's also like in the predicament we were talking about earlier, where he's in a good lineup, but he may not be hitting in a good spot in that good lineup. So if he's hitting 9th, I mean, it's in front of Ohtani, I guess, when the lineup turns over, but it's, there's better spots to be hitting in other lineups. So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind the flyer because, it's an upside gamble, I think. And if he's going as late as I think he is in drafts, which, I'm drafting him after 200 overall. So if he's there after 200 overall, then yeah, why not? I would take the flyer on him. I don't mind it, but I'm also not expecting a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like you said, it's a flyer, kind of taking the position if maybe you kind of neglected it and you're just looking for some mystery or some upside, because eventually there's not a whole lot of upside at the position. But let's keep moving on here, Gray. Number 20, which starts a new tier number 18, new tier, Jackson Holiday. Last year in 60 games, had 5 home runs, 4 stolen bases, and hit 189. You have him projected for 10 home runs, in AAA, he had 10 home runs, 8 stolen bases, and hit 271. You have him projected for 15 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 63, 67, and 257. Do you believe in life after the flop, Gray?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of fantasy people, I think get out on they get out on players a little bit too soon. I don't think we should be moving on yet. It's like he hasn't even scratched the surface of what like he hasn't even had a full season yet, so it's like you're out on a guy who was like touted as being the number one prospect. I mean, granted, he was supposed to be the number one prospect, but it was also his categories for fantasy weren't like his attributes weren't really going to be incredible for fantasy. So even if he was, even if he had like a great year this year for what he does, it's probably not going to be great for fantasy. Like at the end of the day, he's probably like at best, say 25 homers, 15 steals, 300 average. I mean, I would take that in a second. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like he's going to come out and go 30-30 and hit 330 or 25 homers and 50 steals. Like he's just not built for like fantasy as well as some other players. So I like him though. I would take the flyer at like this. If he's there this late, sure, take the flyer, see what happens. My bigger concern is probably like he could get platooned and he might hit at the bottom of the lineup. So if he's hitting ninth and platooning out against lefties, then I worry even about his production even going forward, because at a certain point, if you're like, he's 20 years old still? No, he just turned 21. So if you're a 21-year-old and you're never hitting lefties, that's going to hurt your development. And like, at what point are you going to hit lefties? Like, are you never going to hit lefties? Like, that's ridiculous. So especially for a guy who you draft like 1 overall and like you expect like him to be an all-star, it's like you got to give him a chance to like sink or swim. So hopefully they give him that chance, because I'd prefer to see like, him hitting against all pitchers just to see what he can do. But the best case scenario doesn't feel like it's really the most realistic case scenario. So like you mentioned already, I have him down for 15 homers, 12 steals. That feels like it might even be a little bit optimistic on the power, but it's a flyer. Again, at this point, we're in like a late game. Like if you punted your middle infielder in a 12-team mixed league, and you just want to take a flyer on a guy like in like 220 overall, you take a flyer on Jackson Holiday just to see what happens. And then, potentially you drop him like mid-April when another bat on waivers gets hot. But yeah, I would take the flyer. I don't mind it. I just, you have no idea what to expect at this point.
No, you really don't know what to expect. I will say, like, I think his upside is pretty massive still. I mean, he could do 25-40, 25-30, something like that. He's plenty fast. I mean, I just still think it's in there, so I'm not giving up. And like I said, I think my view of his upside is still a bit higher than yours. But let's move on to number 19, Michael Garcia. Last year, he had 7 home runs, 37 stolen bases, 84, 58, 231, 281, 322. You were projected for 6 home runs, 34 stolen bases, 71, 64, and 266. He has Willie Castro levels of speed, but without the caught stolen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no. So I wrote a sleeper post for him as well. I have, I think Mikel Garcia is, I mean, I just expect, if I just get a repeat of last year, there's another situation where I feel like he hit 7 homers and stole 37 bags last year. If he could just do that again and just like, with a 16% strikeout rate, if he can do that again with just like better BABIP, I'm taking that all day. So if I'm getting like 7 homers and 37 steals and just a 265 average. I mean, that's a top 100 overall player. So yeah, I'm all about Miguel Garcia. I like him a lot. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say that his ADP is even lower than this by a decent amount. And that's for NFBC. Like I said earlier, in Yahoo and ESPN, he's going to be basically undrafted in most leagues. So you're going to be able to draft him fairly cheaply, I would guess, in just about all leagues. So yeah, and I like him a lot. I think, if I'm the Royals, I move Jonathan India down and put Miguel Garcia in the leadoff spot because his Ks are so good. And his speed is good. I like him at leadoff in front of Bobby Witt Jr., but that's out of my control. So as of right now, it looks like he might be hitting at the bottom of the lineup, but we'll see on that. I don't know. It depends on what they do with Jonathan India.
Yeah, as a Bobby Witt owner in Dynasty League, I really hope to go with India and not Garcia. I don't really need Garcia's 281 OBP in front of Bobby Witt Jr. all season again. So if we could not do that, that would be great. Number 20, Connor Wong. We already talked about him in the catchers. Number 21, Ceddanne Rafaela. Last year had 15 home runs, 19 stolen bases, 70-75, hit 246, 274, and 390. You have projected for 17 home runs, 24 stolen bases, 67, 71, and a 241 average. He is going to be shortstop outfield only in most leagues, but in some leagues he will be second base. So here we are talking about him. Very limited sample from 23, but pretty much improved across the board from that small sample.
Yeah, I know he is he's a stereotypical guy who I usually like drafting late because he's got power and speed. So it's like, as long as he has, last year he hit 15 homers. If he can hit if he hits anywhere from 10 to 15 homers and steals 25 bags, that's easy. That's easy money for fantasy. That's good. And then you would assume the Green Monster would help with his BABIP, so that would help with his batting average. Now, my one issue with him, and all those things probably would have had me rank him even higher. And I want to say that he ended up last year higher on the player rater. I think he is being valued and underranked right now. I'm looking right now. He was 125 overall on the player rater last year. So he's easy money on the his ADP is way after that. So he's super, that's an easy draft pick to make. Now my bigger problem with him is the Red Sox have so many bats. That's my bigger concern is they have 4 guys that are either coming up or have come up and could take, some of his at bats. So I'm a little bit leery of him because Vaughn Grisham, I mean, maybe nothing is there and he can people can move on from that, but you got Christian Campbell and Roman Anthony all breathing down the guys in the Red Sox lineups next. So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to get super excited for Rafael. I think he's probably worth a flyer on at 225 overall or whatever, wherever his ADP is. I think he's probably worth a flyer, but you may get into the season and if the Red Sox start promoting guys, I could see Rafaela being getting on the short side of some of these platoons because as good as he is for fantasy, he's not necessarily great for real baseball. He's a 2.6% walk rate, strikes out a lot. I think he's better for fantasy than he is for real baseball, which is a bit of a concern too. So yeah, I mean, I like him. I worry the at-bats might dry up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really wanted to push him up the ranks, but there's so many people just sitting in the wings in the Red Sox system. Not to mention just it's Red Sox, so they have money. They could just go out and find somebody if they really wanted to. But again, I don't really see that happening. It's more the people sitting behind him in their own system, ready to go. Moving on, number 22, Connor Norby. Last year in 45 games, had 9 home runs, 3 stolen bases, hit .236. You have him projected for 24 home runs, 12 stolen bases, 71, 76, and a .239 average. Had a really nice 12-game run in August when he was recalled. Has put up some decent numbers in the minors, but needs to get the K's under control. And it's not an ideal park for home runs, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I think he's so I wrote a sleeper post for Connor Norby too. So I'm in on him as well. He's another, like, if you're in a 15-team mixed league, I could see, like, him being your MI. If you're in a 12-team mixed league, he's probably more like a utility. But I like him a lot. I would draft him everywhere. He's got power and speed, and the average, while it wasn't good last year at .236, I think there's room for improvement. He was I'd say he's at 33% strikeout rate. Last year he's probably closer to maybe 28, 29. So he can get it down a little bit. But yeah, it's really about the power and the speed. And especially the I think, yes, the Marlins stadium isn't great, but if he's playing every day, which he should, at the top of the lineup, it's not so bad. Like, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about a bad hitter in a good hitter in a bad lineup versus a bad hitter in a good lineup. So I think Connor Norby, he was highly touted for a while with the Orioles. He really was, like, he was hitting well, as you mentioned, when he got called up, and then he got an injury. I like Connor Norby a decent amount. I think there's probably, a good upside. There's potential here for a little bit of a breakout, which, I like that as a flyer, especially where he's going in drafts. Like, if you're worried that, like, you're taking guys that, like, it's like you get to the point in the draft where it's like 220, 250 overall, and you're looking at players to draft, and it's like you're between, like, a Brandon Lau and Connor Norby. It's like, go for the upside. Like, you're not getting, it's like, okay, you may not get a reliable producer, but it's so late in the draft. Who cares? Just grab them and see what happens. So yeah, I like the flyer a lot. I'm drafting Connor Norby for sure.
Yeah, I don't mind the flyer late either. Doesn't necessarily hit the ball crazy hard, but he gets the barrel on it a lot. So, I like that about him, which also can lead to, as you mentioned, maybe some upside for average, and just kind of an all-around play. I think there's speed there that, he didn't really show. He is fast. So if they if the Marlins are going to run, which I don't know why they wouldn't, they let Xavier Edwards run just as much as he wanted. So if they let Norby do the same, there could be some upside with the speed there as well, because he's very fast. Moving on to the next tier, number 23, Zach Geloff. Last year had 17 home runs, 25 stolen bases, 60, 49, 211, 270, and 362. You have him projected for 21 home runs, 26 stolen bases, 66, 73, 216. He build off the 23 season? Kind of, not really. The K rate's still not ideal. But he kind of got it together after a really tough start to the season. He got dropped probably across the board early on. But then figured it out.
Yeah, did he though? did he
a little bit.
Yeah, he hit 211 with a 34.4% strikeout rate. We've moved into so this is a new tier for me, and this is at the point where, like, this is outside of, I think, 12-team mixed leagues. So, maybe if, like, I could see these guys being on waivers in 12-team mixed league. Maybe, someone drafts them. I don't know if necessarily I'm drafting them. They're at best they're like a flyer at the end of your draft to take a flyer on a guy who maybe could do something. Zach Gelof's ADP right now is 220 overall. So he's a little bit inside of a 12-team mixed league according to that. Again, that's NFBC. I don't know what Yahoo and ESPN are looking at for ADP. But I think with Gelof, if he can just like raise his average to like 230, then we're cooking with gas. Then there might be something there where I'm chasing a 2020 guy. But if it's a 2020 guy with a 215 average, I'm telling you that like right now, like in theory, you don't mind how that sounds. You're like, okay, he's 2020, but I've drafted these other guys. They're going to help my average. But you're going to get to May and he's going to have 3 homers, 3 steals, and be hitting 190. And you're going to be like, what am I doing, man? What am I doing? Why do I have this guy on my team? So I'm telling you, like, it seems good in theory, but when you're living it, when you're living the dream, it's the dream doesn't include Zach Gelof. So unfortunately, I think he's probably going to be a pass for me in most leagues, but that's most leagues. Like when like I said, we're out of 12-team mixed league. So if you're in a 15-team mixed league and you're looking at like a late MI and or a utility guy and you're like, well, he's got 2020, then it's like, okay, then sure. I mean, but you have to know that you're also going to get a 215 average. And of course, in an AL only league, sure, why not? I mean, anyone's draftable there. My one caveat on all that is maybe the minor league stadium plays much better for the A's. So if that's the case, Gelof could be in for an uptick with potentially like in theory the stadium should play better. At worst, it should play better for average because of BABIP should go up a little bit for all these guys because there's going to be less foul territory. But yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe the wind currents in Sacramento are a little bit better and more favorable for hitters. So maybe the power goes up a little bit. I mean, I guess there's possibilities here, but not enough possibilities for me to move him up in my rankings.
No, I agree. He's a flyer, but he does have a little bit of upside in the power speed department if he ever gets the average under control. For what it's worth, from August to the end of the season, he hit 242, 4 home runs, 13 stolen bases. So, like I said, there is some potential there if he ever gets the average under control. Moving on, number 24, Jonathan India. Last year, he had 15 home runs, 13 stolen bases, 84-58. Hit 248, 357, 392. Year projected for 16 home runs, 13 stolen bases, 86, 56, and 251. I mean, he's fine. He's off to Kansas City. Probably hurts the home run number because he's no longer in the launching pad that is the Reds ballpark. Had the best K rate of his career along with the best walk rate. I mean, he was pretty solid last year, if not unspectacular.
Yeah, I would say he's probably Willie Castro without like the hope of getting maybe some more steals. Possibly. I think Jonathan India is,
India's faster than Castro. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, it hasn't necessarily shown itself.
New team though. New team. Yeah, he's not on the Reds.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, that completely. I mean,
he's gonna lead off.
It's something. I mean, Jonathan India is always like. I mean, he seems more tantalizing until you actually look at his stats so far in his career, and you're like, okay. I mean, in theory, he's got a new team, more speed. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like he has potential, and then at the end of the day, he hits 15 homers, steals 12 bags, and hits 245, and it's like, okay. I thought there was more there, but I don't know. Maybe there is. For a while, we've thought there's been more ever since his rookie year. I think everyone's thought there has been more for Jonathan India. So I don't know. Maybe it shows itself now, but yeah, I don't. Obviously, with my ranking, I don't have a ton of hope for him, but yeah, you never know. I mean, stranger things have happened.
Stranger things have happened. For what it's worth, I'd rather have India than Rengifo. Moving on to number 25, Tyler Fitzgerald, 96 games, 15 home runs, 17 stolen bases, 53, 34, 280, 334, 497. You're projected for 16 home runs, 24 stolen bases, 61, 57, 233. Very high K rate at 31.7, 6.5% walk rate. Not a whole lot in regards to the underlying numbers here. He had 8 home runs in 15 games in July, then 5 home runs in August, and then 1 in September.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like a Kevin Moss appeal type, where it's like he came out of nowhere and hit like incredibly well for 1 month or 1.5 months or 6 weeks, or however you want to break up your calendar. He did that, and then he sort of disappeared in September. So I don't really know what to make of Tyler Fitzgerald. Like, he could come out and have a pretty solid 2025, and I would be like, okay. I didn't totally expect it, but yeah, I guess I'm not 100% surprised. But then again, if he came out and just had like a mediocre 2025, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, he did sort of seem to be like, it seemed like pitchers figured him out in September, and he looked pretty bad. So I don't know. If it wasn't for that month, like, it's like when a guy only has 3 months to go off of, it's harder, like, really to pin them down. And when one of those months is the last month is so bad, it's like that sticks out to me. So yeah, I'm probably like, I think he's getting drafted prior to where I have him ranked. So I don't think I'm in on Tyler Fitzgerald, but I mean, if he were there as late as I have him, which is like, 275 overall or something, like if he's that late, I guess I would take a flyer on him. But his September is really sticking out to me as like, a bit of a red flag warning sign. So yeah, I'm kind of out on him.
Yeah, I am too. I might be in on him a little bit if he had second base eligibility in most leagues. But in most leagues, he's shortstop only, which kind of limits his appeal for, standard leagues. Unfortunately, because I do think there's a little bit of upside here that he's at least shown it. Whether he can ever maintain that again, TBD. But just seeing it is more than we see from some of the guys we've talked about on this list so far.
That's fair.
Colt Keith. Colt Keith comes in at 26. Last year had 13 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 54, 61, hit 260, 309, 380. You're projected for 17 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 64, 73, and 273. Had a sub 20% K rate, 6.5% walk rate. He had 7 home runs in July and not more than 2 in any other month. But he has shown power in the minors before, so it is there. What are your thoughts here on Colt Keith?
So my biggest thought on Colt Keith and also the Tigers prospects in general, like if a Tigers prospect is projected for 70 grade power and 35 homer power, they're absolutely going to hit 12 to 15 homers in the major leagues. That's what I've come to realize when it comes to Tigers hitting prospects. I don't know, like, I know Comerica is not a great park, but man, is like the Tigers prospects are like, they just flame out so terribly when hitting wise, at least. Like, Scubel and we'll talk about pitching another day. But yeah, I mean, Torkelson, I mean, Kerry Carpenter is good against righties, but can't hit lefties. Colt Keith just had 148 games, 556 plate appearances, and he hit 13 homers. How do you, I mean, I know he was a rookie, but like, how do you only hit 13 homers?
With 7 in a month, by the way.
It was 7 in a month and 516 at bats. Like, he had a full season and 7 in a month, and that month was July. So it's like, what the hell did you do in August and September, bro? I don't know, man. Colt Keith, I mean, maybe I'm writing off a 23-year-old too quickly, and he's going to do well this year. And, I have to eat my words. And he was better in the minors, but man, if that doesn't sound familiar when it comes to other Tigers prospects, like so many of them are better in the minors and then they get to the majors and it's like, So yeah, I don't know, man. I'm obviously I'm kind of down on Colt Keith, not really excited about him, but I guess if you're like in a deep enough league where you want a guy who's penciled into the middle of a lineup and could have some upside, even though we really didn't see it, I guess you could take a flyer on Colt Keith, but he has to be at the right price for me. I don't know. I think I'm after his ADP as of right now, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe if it's a deep enough league, I'd take a flyer.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. It's a flyer. Like I said, he's shown power in the minors before, so it's something that he can tap into. But that's about what you're looking for as far as a breakout. And that's not, I mean, I don't know, there's a whole lot there other than that. Number 27, Brendan Lau. We already talked about him in the first baseman. Number 28, the remix to beat on, Brendan Donovan. 14 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 65, 73, 278, 342, and 417 last year. You him down for 15 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 66, 71, 282. Launch angle was up a little bit. K rate improved a little bit. I mean, we've talked about plenty of guys who, really in this podcast specifically, who may not be great for the real game, are pretty, it can be okay for our game. Real like Brendan Donovan's the complete opposite of that statement.
Yeah. Actually, I the other day I drafted for Jeff Pontus, our old podcast host, Jeff, prospect Jesus, Ralph Lifshitz, aka Jeff. I drafted for him the other day because he had something else he had to do, and I did him a solid, and I drafted Brendan Donovan, and he was like, Donovan's the one guy I want in every league, and I was thinking like, okay.
Have you forgotten fantasy in your time away, Jeff? What's happened?
I was like, I thought you might give me a hard time about that pick. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. I mean, I think he's got a really good. Like, I think he does have a solid hit tool, Brandon Donovan. Right. Like, I think he is neutrally a better hitter than most guys. Neutrally, probably around a 280 hitter, which is solid, definitely. But I mean, next to no speed, probably no power. Wouldn't be surprised if like he's a lefty, so if he platoons, then you're gonna lose runs and RBIs. I mean, I don't know if that platoon's really gonna happen. I'm just saying if he does. So I mean, a 280 hitter with nothing else is well, I mean, Jeff liked it, so It's all right, I guess.
I mean, he should get some good counting numbers. He should be in the middle of the Cardinals' very non-impressive lineup. So there's that. There's some counting numbers and an average, and he's a really good real life baseball player. Just it's not great for our game. Great.
Yeah.
Number 29. Boy, this is a fall. Gleyber Torres.
Yeah.
Last year had 50 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 80, 63, 257, 330, 378. Year project for 17 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 76, 58, and a 262 average. And he should hit early in the Detroit lineup. Unfortunately, it's the Detroit lineup and the Detroit ballpark. And his hard hit was down 5 points last year, which also isn't a great number to hear from somebody who's primarily power and counting stats.
Yeah, I mean, he went from like being a bit of a bust in a great lineup and a great park, and now he's trying to rebuild his value in Detroit. And I don't know, man. That's a tall ask. I don't know, man. I think he bit off more than he could chew on this one. I don't know if I would go to the Tigers to try and rebuild my value, but I guess you go where you can get a deal. So yeah, I mean, maybe 17 homers, 5 steals is what I have him projected at for like 260. And if he stays in the lineup, he has stayed healthy for the majority of his career. So if he stays in the lineup for 155 games, hitting second, 17 homers, 5 steals, good counting stats because he'll be hitting second. So yeah, maybe 80-ish, 85 runs, 75 RBIs, 65, 70 RBIs maybe, and the 2 spot in Tigers lineup. Yeah, I mean, it's okay for where he's going in drafts. In theory, it probably is going to be, a good pick in theory. Not an exciting one though. It's mostly for deeper leagues. Like if you're in a 15-team mixed league and you can get 17 homers, 5 steals, 260 average in a 155 games at at your MI in a deep league, it's probably a good pick. No one's going to be excited about doing it though.
Yeah, and the speed is gone. He didn't really ever have a ton of speed, but now it's really gone. So I don't really expect those stolen base numbers to come back either. So yeah, I mean, if you can get the counting numbers, 15, 20 home runs and sit in the lineup, then it'll be okay. But we're also very late in the game here.
Right.
All right, great. As I mentioned, we are late in the game here. Gonna cut off here. There are 3 more players in this tier, which are Jake Cronenworth, that we talked about in the first baseman, Tyro Estrada, and Joey Ortiz. Do you want to talk about any of those guys or anybody else left as people are looking around for late targets at the position?
No. Okay, so Otto Lopez in Miami, I think so he is good contact, not hard contact, but he makes contact. He had a decent enough K rate at 17%. He had 20 steals in 117 games in 400 at bats. So 400 at bats, 20 steals. You figure the Marlins are playing for nothing. He also had 6 homers. So, I mean, it's late, right? But if you can get, he also hit 270, by the way, 270 with 17% strikeout rate. So if you can get if you can prorate that out, it looks like 12 homers, 30 steals, 270 average. I mean, that's really good if you're getting that from a guy going as late as Otto Lopez. Now, the problem is Xavier Edwards looks really good, and he's hitting leadoff. So where does Otto Lopez hit really? So there is either an injury at the top of the lineup to move Otto Lopez up, or he's hitting at the bottom of the lineup. Hitting at the bottom of the Marlins lineup is awful. That's not good. But if he's hitting there every day in a deep league, if you can get 10 homers, 25 steals, 270 in a deep league, going as late as he's going, which, is very late. I want to say maybe 300 overall. I don't know, 350. He's going late. Actually, his ADP is a 382. So he's going crazy late. So if you can get that crazy late in a deep league, that has value. So I don't mind that pick for crazy late. And then there's guys like, Jose Tena, Nationals corner man, but he has second base eligibility. There was a moment there in the preseason when I really liked Jose Tena. I was looking at him as a potential sleeper. It ended up not happening because I think he's once Brady House gets called up, I think Jose Tena's out the window. And they also have Juan Yepes. So Jose Tena's at bats may be tenuous. Yeah, there's a pun there somewhere. Anyway, I think there could be something there. Like in 44 games last year, he hit 3 homers and stole 6 bags and hit 267. He makes solid enough contact. He's got power and speed. I like it for an NL only league. It's not going to work for all leagues, but for an NL only league, I think there might be something there until Brady House gets called up and Jose Tena is out the door.
All right. A couple more names here. I mean, if you just look at Boston, Christian Campbell, he could be called up at any point, and he could potentially break camp with them, and he could be great. If he doesn't break camp, David Hamilton has shown that he's at least a capable MLB hitter, and he stole 30 bases last year. So his 833 isn't that off from guys we were talking about much, much earlier in this podcast, assuming he actually has a job, which is questionable. Chris Morel, former Cub, if he actually figures it out, he could be a 25, 30 home run hitter. I don't really think that's going to happen, but if he does this late, it's not a bad gamble. Nolan Gorman, same thing. We're not too far removed from Nolan Gorman being a top 50 prospect in the game. We're in the bottoms here, so you could look at him for some upside. Same with Nick Gonzalez and Vaughn Grissom is we're down here. And if you just need playing time, Jorge Polanco and Jeff McNeil, who got paid and is your 50th ranked second baseman, Gray. I know that fantasy and real life don't completely correlate there, but the money for Jeff McNeil and him being 50th on the list feels a little off there, and also maybe why the Mets lineup has a lot of money invested in it to look pretty after the top 3. Yeah. Top 3 are real nice. Very, very nice.
Very nice.
After that, we're going to see. We're going to see how that goes.
Okay.
But hey, Greg, we've talked a long time about a not so great position. We're finally going to get to a good one next time, though. So it'll be an exciting podcast.
Oh my God, we'll do a 5-hour, do the 5-hour shortstop podcast. It's coming up next.
If you have specific questions, you can find us on Twitter at Razzball, at Razzball for Gray. You can find us on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. Leave comments out there, or on Razzball.com. You can leave them in the comment section. Until we get to shortstops, talk to you later. See you, Gray.
All right, thanks.